Today I'm taking a look at the Wurkkos TS12, a small pocket thrower with onboard USB-C charging. It's using the new YLX N3535B LED, which if you can see down in there is round, not square. It's using a 14500 battery and is in a very small package, as you can see in my hand here. All for a bargain price. Thanks to Wurkkos for sending this one to me to look at and review. Any discounts or coupons I have will be in the description below, along with links to all my social media. Make sure you check those out and see what I'm doing when I'm not making videos too. Here is the packaging that the light comes in, and this is upgraded packaging for Wurkkos. It's a nice sleeve here over the box. You've got some stats on the back, and on the top you've got the specs of the light you ordered. It's a magnetic closure box. And you get some paperwork with it, the manual, and a bag of extras with a couple extra O-rings and a lanyard, and then a USB A to C charging cable. My model also came with a 14500 battery, which is optional. So the UI of this light has two modes. It's a stepped mode, which is in by default. Simple turn on and press and hold to turn up for your three main modes, double press to go to turbo, triple press to go to your blinking modes, and then once in your blinking modes, you can double press to go from strobe to SOS to beacon. And the light also has a moonlight mode that you can access by pressing and holding. So all pretty standard stuff that most flashlight people should be aware of. You've also got a ramped mode on this light, and when the light is on, you just press it 4 times quickly, and it flashes twice, and then you're in a ramped mode and you just come on and it ramps. It does flash at the top and it resets. It's a pretty sharp ramp, and I kind of wish it didn't reset, because then it goes to low and it doesn't go back up. So instead of going up and down like you're used to, if you hit the top, it will reset down to the low. So that's kind of a little bit different, not something we see on most ramping UIs. Tension here, there is a small lanyard hole in the back there for your lanyard connection. The knife is magnetic. As you can see here, it's a reasonably strong magnet, but I've seen much stronger. In hand here, you can kind of see the size. It's not the smallest pocket thrower I have, but it's probably close, and it's a lot narrower in the body. Quite a bit longer than the GT Nano with the small battery tube, but with the full-size tube, it's close. And if we look at the ThruNite Catapult Mini V2, you can see that it's roughly the same size here, but smaller in the head and body diameters. Size and weight, I measured the length at 90.9 mil, body diameter at 20 mil, and head diameter here at 33. Weight with the battery came in at 2.61 ounces, and the light's IPX8 water rated and drop rated for 1 meter. As I mentioned before, the Wurkkos TS12 is using the new LED from YLX called the N3535B, which is round instead of square, which seems to be a trend this year with LEDs. There really isn't much information about the LED that I can find, but from testing I can tell you this example is 5536 Kelvin with about 57 RA from my Opal meter. Its tint is definitely more yellow than on the RA scale than what I'm used to. You can kind of probably see that in the video lights, especially if I pull some paper over. Now I'll go a little less bright here so you can kind of see. I don't know, to my eyes it looks more green than what the meter is showing it. It's not the most appealing tint in my opinion, but with a thrower like this, tint is less important than it would be for like an EDC light or something where you're going to have close tasks. At a distance, you've got that really small hotspot, and you've got a couple of rings you can kind of see on here, and then just minimal spill for the rest of it. It's pretty big minimal spill there. The optic does a pretty good job here. Honestly, I can't tell much of a difference with the round LED versus a light of similar style with square LEDs. It doesn't make that big a difference on this one, at least. There is a little bit of PWM here, but it's very fast. For my outputs, I measured on my Texas Ace lumen tube. We're generally pretty close to what was claimed by Wurkkos for the TS12. The exception was turbo, and at the standard FL1 reading of 30 seconds, I was at 884 lumens instead of the 1050 claimed. I saw 1050, but only at the very initial startup output. Okay, I am looking at the Wurkkos TS12. This is a thrower style light, and I've got it here on in low 10 lumens. And if you've seen my other videos, this is my fence. So it's a 20, 30 feet away. So that's really good for 10 lumens, but this is a thrower. Bumping up, here is medium, 120 lumens easily hits the end of the neighbor's fence there, no problem. This is about 5500K. It's a yellowish tint, even though that is true. Low CRI, about 60. It does have more of a yellow DUV tint to it. It's an XYX LED, and this is actually round in shape instead of square like we're used to. Bumping up here is 400. Easily reaches across the street to the trees that you can see. No problem here. And here is turbo, 1050 lumens, just makes everything nice and bright. It's a pretty decent tint when it's at peak power, but definitely yellows as it gets lower. A little bit of green, not very much at all. It does have strobe, as you can see here, SOS, and beacon. I do have a couple lights to compare it to here. Here's a Lumentop GT Nano, and it also throws decently well. This is about half the size. Here's the TS12 in turbo, GT Nano, TS12. And the other comparison is the ThruNite Catapult Mini V2. And this light's quite a bit more expensive. It is brighter. It has a much bigger beam shape than the TS12 does. Here is the ThruNite and the TS12. Distance-wise, ThruNite does throw further, but again here we're talking at least double, if not triple, the price of the Wurkkos TS12. Heat and runtime. Turbo step down on the TS12 is pretty significant and occurs pretty quickly. It goes from peak of near 1050 lumens to around 300 lumens in about 90 seconds. And I do wish it could sustain more lumens for longer here, but there's not a lot of thermal mass to deal with. Peak heat was around 15-minute mark at 46C, which is warm but won't burn you. And around the 35-minute mark on out to an hour, the light began to seesaw in output. You'll see in the graphs here. Too slowly to see with the eye, but it was enough for the graph to pick up before the light ran on very low. While the light stayed on in a very low output for another 90 minutes, when starting in turbo, the effective runtime is about an hour. Starting in high, you get a little bit more runtime, but the seesaw happens much sooner, and like I said, a little bump in the effective output here. In medium, it ran for 3 hours and 20 minutes total runtime, and no seesaw output, but quite a bit lower output, somewhere around about 120 lumens. Recharging here on the light is via USB-C on the back here, and there's a flush mount silicon cover. There really isn't much space in there for the port, so if you've got a USB cable or maybe an adapter, as I did, not all will fit in here. My Anchor cable fit fine. Some of my other off-brands worked fine, but I had one or two cables that just wouldn't fit in here, so I had to be kind of specific or use the cable that it came with. So something to keep in mind there. It's got an inside diameter of 8.1 millimeters. The included battery is just a generic 14500. It's rated at 900 milliamp hours, and I tested it at 881 on my Vape Cell S4 Plus charger. This isn't a light where a high drain battery is required. It's got a pretty low amperage rating need. Charging itself was just fine and without issue on a PD charger, and I record the light charging in exactly 90 minutes from a maximum charge rate of 0.84 amps. Full, the battery measured 4.12, which is a little bit low, and low voltage protection kicked in at 2.980 volts. So my conclusion on the Wurkkos TS12 is that pocket throwers here have a more limited niche in use in a lot of situations. I've got a friend who's a delivery driver that likes to use one to help spot house numbers and stuff like that. So they're useful for that, useful for various other things. They're also fun to show off to your friends. But they've been a little bit more expensive, like the ThruNites I've showed before here. Good lights, I like them still, but it's not cheap is what I'd call it. So it's made it a little harder to justify sometimes. But this Wurkkos TS12 delivers a solid mini thrower with a budget price. It's an easy light to recommend in the pocket thrower class without really many strong negatives. And if you're looking for this, I'd encourage you to check out the links below in the description and see if this is at a price point where you would be interested. As always, guys, I appreciate you sticking to the end and watching these reviews. And if you have any questions, I'll do my best to answer them in the comments below. And as always, thanks for liking, sharing, and subscribing, and I'll catch you on the next review. Thanks for watching.